Hey there, Shaniqua Coley.
Hey Jess, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me today for an I Do Affirm affirmation conversation. Today, we're going to discuss the affirmation, I am worthy. And I want to thank you so much for giving me and the viewers some time out of your day to talk about that. So, first of all, I want to talk about you being from Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
So, I'm probably gonna sound funny. NY, stand up. No, okay, I'm not gonna do that because I don't have any New York in me at the moment. Okay, we cannot use that. That is so bad. My husband's gonna kill me. Definitely not using that. We are totally starting this interview over. I'll use
You can stop the recording and start again if you need to. Just
I'll use some of it as bloopers, but yeah.
okay.
This is what I go through with people. Some of the bloopers I will keep in at the end of the interviews, but that part I'm gonna take out because Greg gonna be like, "What the fuck?" All right, not gonna get my shit together. Stop laughing. You keep laughing. I can't stop. All right. Whew. Hey there, Shaniqua Coley. Thank you so much for joining me today for an I Do Affirm affirmation conversation. Today, our topic is going to be talking about worthiness. I appreciate you spending some time with me and our viewers today. I see that you're from Brooklyn. Okay, New York, stand up. That's right. Actually, I really love New York. I love the city, even though it kind of stinks a little bit, but it's super amazing. I really love it there. Traffic sucks, but I just love the diversity of it. I love that any way you turn, there's someone who looks different than you, but I just feel so welcome. I feel like I can go out in my sweats, or I feel like I can go out in a fake fur because I would not wear real fur, by the way, and just fit totally in that city. And I wanted to tell you some things that I know about Brooklyn, which is totally ridiculous. Don't ask me why I know these, but I did spend some time in Brooklyn once upon a time. But one of my favorite candies, Tootsie Rolls, were invented in Brooklyn. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yes, Tootsie Rolls were invented in Brooklyn. I love them to death, but I don't eat them very much because they get stuck in my teeth. But they're so delicious. And yes, and a girl's best friend, they were invented in Brooklyn too. And I am not talking about diamonds. I'm talking about plastic credit cards. Credit cards were invented in Brooklyn. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yes.
You know more about Brooklyn than I do.
Yes, girl, because I'm just so weird. I like to look up just like random cities before I go and visit there, for the first time. And then I end up coming across strange things on Google, we all do on Google. And then I learned those things. I have a whole lot of weird Brooklyn facts, but that's not why we're here today. But yes, Tootsie Rolls and credit cards, two things I really love, were invented in Brooklyn. We're going to talk a little bit about credit cards, but not really when we get into a little bit more of your background. So you currently live in Virginia. You live in Charlottesville. Many of the viewers may have heard of it. Fortunately, a couple of years ago where we had, a bad incident there. We're not going to really go into it, but so that name probably rings a bell for our viewers. You have a master's in education. Say it again.
I was actually here during that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well then now we got to go into it a little bit. So when the incident happened down in Charlottesville, Virginia, what were you thinking? What was it like being physically there, not just someone like me spectating on the TV?
So it was strange because, as you know, I'm from New York, I'm from Brooklyn, and so I'm really big on diversity and inclusivity. And so I understood what was happening, but I was still a little bit in shock at what was happening because I'm just used to a different culture and a different vibe. But having different pockets of friends, I could see how some of my friends felt scared to go outside, how some of my friends still had to live life, and just being stuck in that dichotomy of where do I go, what do I do? And so for a couple of weeks, it was just very tense in the city, like even going to work and just all those different things. So, and I feel sorry for that lady's family. I think her first name was Heather. There was just a lot that happened that year, and but I'm back. So Charlottesville has a different vibe than it did then. And I'm just glad that the city has been able to do some things to try to recover.
Yeah, I agree. I was down there just a couple days with you, a couple days ago with you, and it didn't give me that vibe, but I was absolutely shocked that that happened in the first place there, having both of us spent, you know, probably a decade or so, well, more than that at this point in that city. So you have a master's in education with a concentration in urban education, which is absolutely phenomenal. Can you explain that just a little bit?
Absolutely. So I actually graduated 2 weeks ago with my degree in education. And I grew up in a house full of educators. My grandmother was an educator on both my father's side and my mother's side. There's education just all around. But what I noticed is there's specific education, which, like I said, we'll get into later, that we aren't taught. And so what I want to do is develop curriculum and instruction, like programs and foundations. And so I thought it best to go to school and get the foundational knowledge so that, as I like to say, I can master the rules so that I can break them and bend them to the way that fits for my community. Urban education is only taught in 2 schools, I found out, Texas A&M and Liberty University. And so I was very blessed to be a member of Liberty University that actually had that program, and I could latch on and just figure out the things that affect my community and the communities that are like mine.
Wow, you sounded so educated there. I love it. And you inspired me a little bit. I can't wait to kind of see how that grows for you. I also see that you're the owner of Sienna Solutions. What is that?
So Sienna Solutions is actually a parent company for a couple of different companies that I have underneath it. But the idea is I want to create solutions. We talk about problems all the time, and problems are all around us. So why not be the solution to some of those problems? And that's where Sienna Solutions was born. So one of the things I do is I help people that are small businesses create contracts for themselves. I help manage and consult what they're doing with their businesses. And even underneath that, I've created some other companies that I think we're going to get into a little bit later.
Okay, girl, you like the Jill of all trades, and I'm loving it. All right, so you're also part owner of See and Say Writers Collective. All right, well, let's talk about that.
Let's. So the C is for Sienna, and I probably should have started with that. That is my pen name, and I actually developed it on a deployment. And so this was back in 2007, 8, so don't judge me. But it came from the color sienna. It's a crayon, and it's a brown. And I used to tell people that's my color, sienna brown. And so then I just shortened it to Sienna B for my pen name, and it kind of stuck. And then as I grew and grew and grew, I realized that it really just spoke to me in a way that my birth name, which is Shaniqua, did not as much. And so I just held on to it, and really is very special to me. And so that's the C part. And then Say is for Aseba, who is the other person who is co-founding that company with me. And so that's where we got See and Say. But also it's a publishing company. So you'll see our words and then we'll actually speak to you. So that's where the See and Say. And it's a writers collective because we are here for writers, and a lot of indie writers feel like they don't have a place. We started on a journey of we want to write a book, but then we were like, what do we do from here? So we decided to found a company that's all inclusive. You can come to us and get your book art done. You can come to us and get editing done. You can come to us and just from start to finish, get the entire process done. So you can focus on being a creative and not worrying about the business details of it.
That is amazing. All of that is amazing. First of all, I wish you were around when I was younger and I could not figure out a nickname for Jessica. While all my cousins had cool nicknames like T Baby and CC and Annie Mae, which they don't think any of those are cool at our, in our 30s at this point. I was just Jessica or High Yellow, White Girl, just like things like that. Things that were related to the, lack of melanin in my bright skin. But Sienna B, and then you just had this whole explanation on how that came to be. Where were you when I was like 11 and I just could not come up with anything cute? And so I have no nickname still to this day. Thank you very much for coming into my life way too late. Okay. And I heard you say deployment. So obviously I'm assuming that you are military or former military.
I am. I actually have 18 and a half years of active Army federal service. And that was my second deployment. I've actually been deployed 3 times. Once to Afghanistan and then twice to Iraq.
Wow, that is amazing. Look, y'all, I'm up here acting like I don't know her while I'm interviewing her. Of course, I know she in the military. That's how I know her.
I thought it was cool though. I was like, yeah, let me act like.
let me keep it real. Of course, I know her. She was literally in uniform 2 days ago when I saw her. Oh, I'm so crazy. All right, so we're going to get into our affirmation, right? Because the reason why we're here is because we want to inspire and empower other people. And that's why I asked a group of people that I know to help me in my business endeavors, right? My business, I Do Affirm, is founded on 27 different affirmations. And so I asked everyone that I knew to choose from that set of affirmations and help to expound on one of those each so that we can basically help other people who would be watching get a little bit strengthened in those areas. So we're going to get a little bit serious here before we lighten it back up, right? So there was an incident that occurred in your past that made you question your worth. Do you feel comfortable kind of going into that a little bit?
Sure, let's do it. What I've taken from that incident, and this was a few years after the incident, is that things that happened to me so that I can help someone else get through it. And so there is no testimony without a test. So just to give a little bit of background, I was raped in 2010, right before that deployment I actually spoke to you about. And I think that may be where that sense of my nickname and all that stuff came from, was I was trying to build my worthiness back up, because when it happened, I felt very stripped. It happened in my home. And so it happened in my home with someone that I trusted, which kind of makes it all like, it had me questioning a lot of things. Like you start to play back in your mind, what if I didn't do this? What if this didn't happen? What if I didn't do that? What if, like, how did we get here? Because it was very strange. I was a lower enlisted. This person was higher ranked than I was. Not very much higher, but we all had a close circle of friends. And I think that's where the stripping of what I felt like was my worthiness and the disempowerment came from, is we were all friends. And he was married to one of my best friends. And so he knew my husband at the time. And it was just like all of these different things that, you watch the TV shows and the movies and you're like, it doesn't quite happen the way they say that it does, but it does happen. And so I think that it's important, whether it's uncomfortable or not, talk about it. At this point, it's been 11, 12 years. So I've been through the cycles. I think they call it 7 stages of grief. I've been through all of the stages, I'd say, at this point. And I'm at a stage now where the more I talk about it, the more empowered I feel, because then it's not something that I'm ashamed of anymore. It's not something that I feel guilty about. It's not something that I blame myself for anymore. And so it's kind of like, sure, let's talk about it. It's not a happy subject of my life, but it's a part of my story. And so that's where the empowerment part came from. And strangely enough, and I want to just share this with your viewers, however you handle it, it's okay. Like, it happened at, like, I don't know what time of morning, but I had work that following morning. I got up, the person left the house, was no longer my house. I got up, I took all of my covers, I threw them in the trash, my night clothes. I just got showered, put on my uniform, and went to work like nothing ever happened, because I was like, if I stop to process this, I don't know where that will lead. And I had CLS class, I had a deployment. And so it's like, I let someone strip what I felt was my worth from me. And then I didn't even take the time to build myself back up at that moment. I put something else before me. And so I think I just went down a journey of feeling unworthy. And so that's why I picked the worthy affirmation. I don't know if that answered your question. If there's some more you want to go into, like I said, I'm completely comfortable if you have questions, or if there's something I can elaborate on for your viewers.
No, it definitely did. And unfortunately, according to RAIN, 1 in 6 women in their lifetime will have either been raped or been the victim of an attempted rape, right? And it's absolutely insane. And a lot of women who experience that, and I was just giving that statistic for women, but obviously women are not the only people who will experience rape in their lifetime. Obviously, men are raped as well. But a lot of people contemplate suicide, they do suicide, they have lifelong depression, they are withdrawn from their family, their friends, their work environment. I mean, for you to just kind of get up, like you said, the next day and just walk into work as if nothing happened, it kind of just reminds me of just what we as women, and especially African Americans, just not in just the rape, context, but just in many contexts of our lives, just have to do with a lot of the traumas that we experience, or the generations before us have experienced. You just get up and you just go on about your day as if nothing ever happened, despite the traumas that you've experienced and endured. And I'm so sorry that happened to you, and I thank you so much for sharing that. And we're going to come back to that a little bit. But I want to lighten the mood just a tiny bit because you're through this Zoom and I can't just reach out and give you a hug and a kiss on your cheek for sharing that with us. So I'm going to ask you that something else. So what makes you feel, obviously that took away a lot from you, right? But you held your head high and you went to work. And I mean, how did you even feel when you went to work the next day? Like how did you even do your job? How did you interact with your coworkers and your colleagues?
I don't know if it was that incident or just my childhood, but I am really good at compartmentalizing stuff. And so I just tucked it away. And strangely enough, that same day, the person who did it sent me a text message apologizing. Like, I'm sorry if things went awry. Whatever he said, I was just like, are you serious? And so it was like, I couldn't figure out a way to process that and go to work. And I felt like it's going to be one or the other. And I didn't feel like processing right then was going to be what worked. So I wouldn't say, looking back, it was a response. It wasn't a and there's no good or bad, I'll say, but it wasn't a response I think I would choose again, simply because it allowed too much time to go by, too much scar tissue to build up over the trauma, and it delayed the healing process that has to come. Trauma, then healing. And so I put a lot in between the trauma and the healing process that ultimately affected my relationships, ultimately affected marriages. It like affected me in ways that I feel like if I would have just taken the time to heal right there, but I was alone. My husband at that point had deployed already. And so I really didn't feel like I had a good support system. And then I was ashamed. It was like, who am I going to tell this to who's not going to then look at me differently? Who's not going to ask me a million questions? And my answer is going to be, I don't know. I don't know how this happened, or maybe I shouldn't have done that. So rather than go down that rabbit hole, I just shifted my foot on something else. And that's probably how I've just been able to do it, just compartmentalize and putting it in a basket to be dealt with later.
I can understand that. All right. So obviously that was something that may have made you feel unworthy or may have stripped you of your confidence. So to lighten the mood, which we were supposed to be doing, but I had to give the viewers a little bit more. I wanted a little bit more, right? And I wanted you to be able to process that a little bit. I didn't want to just cut it off there. What makes you feel confident? What makes you feel worthy?
I would say accomplishments. And it was like such a reaction to feeling disempowered, is that I took myself on a journey of accomplish to build my worthiness back up. And examples of that are on that deployment. I wrote a lot. I wrote a poem about what happened, and I actually shared that poem during the deployment. And I could tell some people knew that it wasn't just, oh, spoken word, because my Italian sergeant major actually came to me afterwards and he's like, are you okay? Did something happen? I'm like, no, sergeant major, just a poem. But it was one of those things I still wasn't ready to process, especially not in Iraq, Lord knows. I started writing short stories. I just would take myself other places, but the confidence piece would come from realizing that I was able to manifest things by thinking about them. Like I would imagine a story and then put it on paper. I would go to school. So I was going to school. That was very helpful. And so what makes me feel most confident today, though, I would say, is just looking in the mirror. And that's not something that I was extremely comfortable doing when I was growing up. That's not something I was extremely comfortable doing years ago. And so now to be able to wake up, especially my hair, like, man, not having to deal with hair has been the best transition ever. I locked my hair about 2 years ago, and not worrying about if my hair is going to be poofy or not poofy, like all of these different things that had to do with my appearance have really helped solidify my confidence. But I know that where it actually comes from is just my spirituality, and it always leads me back to me. So the more self-discovery I do, the more I realize how everything I'm looking for outside of me is inside of me, everything. And so it kind of takes away that attachment to the external. And the more I focus on me and the internal things that I have, the stronger I feel, the better I feel, and the more I am able to be what I want to be for the people around me.
Oh, so beautifully spoken. Obviously, I would not expect anything less. It's like I can tell the passion in the things that you say. Things always just come out so eloquently and so just effortlessly because you're speaking from your heart. So I really love just having those type of conversations with you. And I will say, yes, I do feel you that it's nice to not have to worry about your hair. I know obviously in the military, things have changed within the past couple of years, allowing women to lock their hair. And obviously, you know, African-American women, right? Because I mean, that's who's wearing locks. So it is really amazing that we do have these more, you know, inclusive standards. My hair is not locked, but it is very nice to be able to not have to take my really curly poofy ponytail and, you know, bun it all up, because of course we all know most women in the military, after years of this bun, we develop traction alopecia, which is what I have at this moment. And if we had more inclusive standards earlier on in my career, I'm pretty sure I would have been able to protect my hair a little bit more. So I totally feel you on that. Just being able to get up and go and to protect your natural hair by locking it or just doing protective styles, it does make you feel a lot more confident, right? And not having to assimilate to
Yes, ma'am.
hairstyles that are not meant for you, right? They do not work with your hair texture. So that's absolutely amazing. So I think you already gave this. I was going to ask you, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling with finding a sense of worth in their life? You sort of already gave that, but did you want to expound on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I would say the biggest thing that it took me a long time to learn is you have to have compassion for yourself. Like, it's not your fault. There's nothing you could have done different. And so just taking that time to extend yourself grace. Forgiveness takes a while, so I won't rush you to forgive someone who has traumatized you or who has made you feel less than worthy. But I will say that if you're able to, that does help bring some peace. But the biggest thing I would say is be compassionate with yourself.
That's right. I love that. So you and your co-founder of CNC's collectives, your co-author, you guys are going to be publishing your first novel this summer called Love Pieces, Shayla's Story. First of all, I'm definitely going to read that. And you and your co-founder both know that I don't really read a lot. I just started back. She has pushed me into reading, and now I can't sleep thanks to her because the books be so darn good. So I'm definitely going to be reading this one. Where will we be able to like look out for your books?
So we're going to self-publish through our publishing company, but we're also going to use Amazon. So you'll be able to find it on Amazon.com. Also CNCWritersCollective.com. You'll be able to find it there. And of course, we will make sure that you, Jessica, you personally have the link in the updates so that you can let your viewers know when it's finally here.
Awesome. Oh, I can't wait. I'm paying for the book, but I definitely want an autograph.
Absolutely. And I just want to tell the viewers, it's actually a trilogy. So
Oh,
Love Pieces, Shayla's Story is the first part of a three-part, and it's actually going to follow three characters. So you'll learn about Shayla, you'll learn about Keisha, and you'll also learn about Benjamin. So
oh, I know this is gonna be good because I know that you and Asaba both are really good at writing, really, really love reading. And I know the type of books and movies that Asaba likes. So I'm really, really curious. That's awesome. I love the magic. And actually I'm gonna be interviewing Asaba too. So I can't wait to interview her, and so people can see
awesome.
just how you two just mesh so well together. And so we are definitely going to be following both of your journeys, especially your collective writer's journey. This is phenomenal. And, you know, maybe I'll be publishing something using
Come
your
on,
company. Absolutely. I've been trying to write some stuff, but
we need an I Do Affirm workbook or some kind of I Do Affirm journal
oh
prompts. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. I've been doing some stuff for under my company, but also I like to write, you know, like erotica fiction as well.
it
So
fit right in. Come on over.
I really do. So maybe I'll do something with that. It's really just been a hobby since I was in Korea back in like 2006, but we'll see.
I love how when we're removed, it seems like from the States, and that's just more of a metaphor for me about being removed from all the external. We concentrate. You were in Korea, I was in Iraq, and we were just away from what we would normally see as our creature comforts, and you were just forced to sit with yourself. And what beautiful creations come out of that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you have less distractions, you know, when you're here amongst your natural habitat, it's just you you really feel like you just have too much tugging at you all the time. But when you're there, you know, you sing so far to other people is that they kind of let you breathe a little bit. And I feel like that's when you really get to learn more and do more for and about yourself. So I think that's what it is. And then you're going to be starting Sienna Speaks and Empowering blogcast, excuse me, because you always coming up with something like creative. So blog, podcast, blogcast, meant to empower those who feel challenged or timid using their voice. So what platform can we find that on when it comes out?
It'll be on Wix.com when it does come out. It's also going to be on YouTube.com. And so what's so awesome to me about that is I took a class on this journey to my master's, and technology savvy I was not, but I was challenged to create a blog. And on that blog, I had to put all my discussion posts, and he wanted videos and all of this. And I was like, I can really do this. And not only can I do this, it was like, I should do this. And my grandmother, growing up, she used to call me bouche, which is French for mouth. And so I have a very smart mouth. And but over the years, I feel like in childhood and then into adulthood, I would find myself shutting down. That's like my defense mechanism. If something is going awry or I'm starting to feel too seen, I withdraw. And so I'm coming back, like I said, back around to myself. And I'm like, there's people out there who are spending 15, 20 years too long afraid to use their voice, not ready to speak up. And it's not that they don't have anything to say, it's just they're not sure how to say it. And so it was like, I can be that example for them. I can be an example, because there's plenty of people out there who are doing empowering things, but I want to be one of those women and add to that space. So that's where Sienna Speaks came from.
I love it. I love it. It's funny that you were basically awarded a name that had to deal with your mouth. And when I was in elementary, I received the Loquacious Award, which at the time I didn't really know too much what that was, and later learned it just meant I talk a whole damn lot. So here we are together, and we're really good friends. So I guess it makes sense. Oh, well, that's so funny. Well, all right. We're gonna talk. Okay, so wait a minute. Before we get to ending this, I did mention earlier that you're a financial educator. So we just talked about how you're not really that good at technology, but I do want to let people know that you had created this series of videos, like the A to Z's of finance or something like that. I can't remember exactly what you call them, but where did you post those? Because those were so helpful, and I would love for people to be able to see those.
So those are 26 ABCs of finance, and they're actually on my Facebook page. If anybody's interested, of course, you can give them my direct contact information, but it's on my Facebook page, and I saved all of them, so they shouldn't delete or anything, but they're the 26 ABCs of finance.
Okay, well, I'm definitely, once I edit this, I'm gonna put all your information just on, on a slide that I include in this video, and I'm gonna put that there because people should definitely have access to that. That was even really helpful for me. So that your tagline. All right, let's talk about that. Engage, educate, and empower. First of all, you have engaged me this entire interview. Well, we're gonna just call it a conversation, right? Because that's really what we've just been doing. We've just been talking and running our mouth to one another. But I have been totally engaged, and I hope the people who end up watching this are engaged as well. Educate. Obviously, you've educated us here. Wow, and you've definitely empowered us. First of all, like I said before, Jill of many trades, you have definitely shown us that if you have an inkling of a desire, of an interest in doing anything, just do it. Like, ain't nothing to it but to do it, which is one of my taglines. And you have definitely shown this. You basically have your hands in all kinds of stuff that I don't even know where you get time to sleep, but I am thoroughly impressed. And I know you personally, I know you're always going, and I do know you get your sleep. So, so even more impressive. But how did you come up with that mantra?
So it don't remember where it came from exactly, but I know that once I thought about it, it really cemented for me. So it actually came from the financial education aspect for me. I wanted to create a foundation. It was going to be like a week-long camp, and I wanted to empower young girls between 11 and 17. I thought that was a great demographic because growing up, I wouldn't say we were poor, but we were on government, assisted housing, and we lived in what they call the projects, so the housing project. And my mother was a single mother trying to raise 3 children. Now she had resources around her, but money wasn't flowing in and out of our house in a way that we had more money than month. We always had more month than money. And so when I thought about it, I'm like, how do I change this? We need access and we need opportunities. And so I'm like, but if I'm talking to some 11-year-old girls, they're not going to be hearing what I'm saying. So I have to engage them. Like, how do I get your intention? I have to say something that makes sense to you. I have to make it in a way that you want to relate to. And so that's why I was like, oh, we're going to do it for a week in Orlando. And you'll get to, at the end of our foundation or at the week, we'll go to Disney World or something like that. Something that I didn't go to Disney World growing up. The first time I went to Disney World, I was 20. I was going on a deployment. Like I was a full grown adult the first time I experienced that. And while theme parks aren't everything, it was just one of those things that I know there's other young girls out there like me that aren't going to have their first experience until later. So I'm like, you have to engage them. What's something I can do to engage someone? And then I'm like, educate. Like I have to take the knowledge I have or the information I have and give it to you. The wisdom I have, turn it into knowledge for you. So once we engage you, then I believe you get educated. And with the education, once you apply it, that's where you'll become empowered. So empowerment is my ultimate goal. Anyone who's worked with me in my office knows that I don't want to do anything for you. I want to teach you how to do it. And because that's always just been my philosophy in life is educate and empower. I think engage came later on when I realized that all the education in the world is not going to matter if they're not listening. And so that's where engage came from. So yes, engage, educate, and empower is the tagline of all my companies, of everything I do. It's always going to be how I approach it.
I love it. You're a really good speaker, by the way.
I'd love to be a guest anytime you want to have me.
You really are. You're a really, really good speaker. So thank you. And I'm sure I'll have you plenty. People don't really know yet. I mean, I haven't put it out here on these, but we do have our monthly affirmation conversations the last Thursday of every month at 8 p.m. And you're always there. You're one of my biggest affirmites. Actually, you're probably one of my main ones, number one. You're definitely. So I want to thank you so much for being here today, sharing your story with us. And of course, with sharing your story, you're sharing your truth, right? I'm humbled and inspired by your courage and your survival. And just by the way that you handled things and you became strengthened and encouraged from that. I know that was not easy. But again, unfortunately, statistics, like I said, show that 1 in 6 women will experience something related in their lifetime. And I hope that we were able to help with this conversation, and not just from that type of incidence aspect, but just in worthiness overall. Continue to take care of yourself, continue to take care of others. Definitely can't wait to see you take your uniform and boots off, because the sky is clearly the limit for you. And so I look forward to being, a cheerleader on that journey with you and just seeing you excel. And love you so much. Thank you so much. You go, girl.
Before we go, can I share one more thing with you?
Of course.
So it's on my shirt, and my best friend made the shirt, but I didn't write it. So
I know, I read it. It's awesome.
But that's a quote I gave her, and I asked her to put it on the shirt for me. And so since we're talking about things that happened in my past, I do want your viewers to know, and I think you can see it, but it says, my past keeps me humble and my future keeps me hopeful. And so for anyone who is contemplating suicide or is depressed or dealing with anxiety or any other, May is Mental Health Month. So dealing with anything, just know that your past is where you get your humility from, but your future is going to keep you hopeful. So don't let anything keep you down, and you got it. You can make it tomorrow. And I love you too, Jess. This was so much fun. Appreciate it.
Was Sienna B, aka Shaniqua Coley.
Right.
Oh, it was so good talking to you. Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.
Bye. Hi there. Thank you so much for tuning in to another I Do Affirm Affirmation Conversation. I hope that you enjoy the conversation with Shaniqua just as much as I did. It was vulnerable and it was raw, but it was real. And that's why we're here, to share these stories with people who may have experienced some of the things that those people that I interviewed have, in hopes that it will help you get through what you're going through. You don't have to suffer in silence, and you don't have to do it alone. We want to remind you that you cannot let things in the internal part of life determine your internal worth or power. You need to do things that remind you of how powerful you are, and realize that your presence is appreciated and important to the lives of many people. You have many qualities that others admire and many strengths. So play up on those strengths. You determine your value. You determine your worth. Do not let other people just constantly withdraw from your bank. If they are not making deposits into you, then you may need to reassess their belonging in your life. You are beautiful, you are special, and you are worthy. Remember that. Take care of yourself. You're not in this alone.